So here we have a form that I want the user to display a whole number because I'm just going to generate a bunch of numbers from 1 to whatever the user number wants. But I'm going to use the for statement. So over here, let me go ahead and declare user num as an integer, and I'm going to declare output as a string, and I'll set it initially equal to nothing. I'm also going to need a counter, so what I'll do is I'll go back over here to the integer section and let me just say dim counter as integer. Alright, now if I wanted to display a bunch of numbers from 1 to the user number, so if the user number enters 5, then we're going to see 1 space, 2 space, 3, 4, 5, so forth and so on. Okay? Alright, if I were to use a while statement, this is what it would look like. We'll have counter, we'll set that to 1. We'll say while the counter is less than or equal to the user number, press enter. What happens is output is going to be whatever the old output is. We're going to concatenate that with the value of counter. And so we'll say that's going to be counter. Then we'll take counter and we'll increment it by 1. By the way, this is probably a good time for me to show you the shortcut for counter is equal to counter plus 1. I could do this also. I could say counter plus equals 1. That's the same thing as counter is equal to counter plus 1. So this is the shorthand notation. It just simply means increment counter by 1. This is the way that I read it. I say counter is going to be assigned counter plus 1. Okay. If you want to use that shorthand notation, that's fine. I personally like this because it's much more readable. And anyway, you should be used to both of these. If you were to put a subtraction, multiplication, division sign, you could do that for those as well. Okay. That's the shorthand notation. So counter is going to increment by 1. As long as counter is less than or equal to the user number, output is going to continue to be this. I shouldn't have said plus, sorry about that. Let me put the concatenation operator, put a space over here, put the concatenation operator, and then whatever output happens to be. You can use plus. We're just overloading that, but for Visual Basic, let's just use the concatenation operator. That's fine. And then let's see here. Oh, I forgot to get the user input. Sorry about that. That's going to be user num is going to be convert dot to int32 whatever is inside of the text box dot text, and then the calculation is here, and then the output will just simply be me sending this to a label. So lbl result dot text is going to be whatever output is. Save my work. I'll run the program. Move this over here so you can see the code. So if I type in a number 5, say for example, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I display 9 numbers, if I display 3 numbers, okay, so you see that this works. This is simply outputting numbers from 1 to whatever the user num is. Now this is using a while statement. So below code displays numbers from 1 to the user number using a while statement. Now what I want to do is the exact same thing, but I want to use a for statement. Using a for statement. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment this code out, and I'll select this guy over here, comment out the selected lines. So now you see that comments them out. And let's do the same thing, but with a for statement. So let me really make sure that you see this is one chunk of code over here. Copy that. And here's the other chunk over here. Right? All right. Well, the first thing that you'll do is you'll type in a for statement, or type in the word for. And then you'll indicate what the counter is. So we'll say for counter, and this is going to be a number that equals from 1 to the user number. Enter. Now, if I wanted to, I don't have to. If I wanted to, I could put step 1, which means the same thing as this. Counter is equal to counter plus 1. Counter will be incremented by 1. Now it'll be incremented by 2. Now it'll be incremented by 3. Let me put this back to 1. If I don't put anything here, that just simply by default means increment by 1. If I wanted to, I could have it displayed here. Okay, so this is the optional part of a for statement. So over here, what I'm going to do is I'm just simply going to say output is going to be whatever the old output is. I'm going to concatenate that with a space, and I'm going to concatenate that with whatever the value of counter is. And that's it. So if I run the code, type in the number 5, 1 through 5. Type in the number 8, 1 through 8. Type in the number 3, 1 through 3. Okay, so you notice that it took this chunk of code using a while statement to do what this chunk of code did with one for statement. So how does this work? First of all, in a while statement, you always have to give the starting point for the counter. We do that right here in a for statement. You also have to indicate how this thing is going to increment from loop to loop. That is done right here. And then you keep on looping as long as this test is true. Well, here's the test. We're going to go from 1 to the user number. So that means less than or equal to, up to, and including this user number. So the nice thing about the for statement is that you consolidate 3 different things in one line. This, and this are all consolidated on one line. So that's why programmers like the for statement. You don't have to use the for statement. You can use the while statement as well. I kind of switch back and forth. The nice thing about the for statement is later on when we talk about arrays, when we talk about an array of data, for statements and arrays, they go hand in hand. Okay. All right, so let me stop the program. Any comments or questions? Okay, the do looping structure is a post-test looping structure in that you will enter into the loop body to execute it guaranteed in time. The question is whether or not you're going to loop through this a second, third, fourth, so forth and so on time. And so the way that that's going to be determined is down over here with this condition. So notice here we've established the counter. We will enter into the do looping structure. We execute these one time. Whether we do this a second time is going to be based on the condition. Keep on looping until. Now before I had this situation over here. In the previous looping structures I said as long as this thing is less than or equal to the user num. Well, if we do that, and if I run the program, if I put the number 5 over here, notice that only 1 gets displayed. And the reason why that is because counter is set equal to 1. We know that up here. Counter is now going to be incremented by 1, so counter is now 2. Keep on looping until the counter is less than or equal to your number. Well, 2 is less than or equal to 5. So therefore, we are no longer going to loop again, so we jump out and send the output, which in this case is just the number 1. So the problem was my relational operator. If I change that to greater than, then 1 is not greater than 5, 2 is not greater than 5, 3, 4, 5 is not greater than 5. Finally, we get to 6, that's greater than 5, so then we display all of our numbers. So if we run this code and put number 5, you see it displays 1 through 5.